This is the Tales of Masculus and the Brotherhood of Righteous Nobility. Chapter 2. Wisdom from on High. Later that night, after a long day of riding, Masculus arrived at the Old Cock Inn, the local tavern of choice for him and his most trusted brothers, who patiently awaited his return. Upon his entrance, they were eager to hear of his most recent exploits.
"Tell us, Masculus,"
they begged of him.
"A true gentleman never boasts nor seeks praise from others."
Whilst sober, Masculus reminded them.
"Drinks! Drinks! Drinks!"
And so they drank, until much had been drank by all, and Masculus was well emboldened by his cups, no longer burdened by decorum or adherence to moral civility. He recounted his time at Desperato's Manor at length, detailing out the fairness of the former maiden's beauty, the fantastically tight, moist flower she possessed, and the details of how she moaned and convulsed as he blossomed it. His brothers were no strangers to women themselves. As ever, they pressed Masculus to tell them more.
"What of her northern hills and her southern slopes? Does she care for them? Did you care for them?"
Asked Sir Oliver Closeoff, ever interested in the natural female form. Sir Closeoff desires nothing more than to feel a cool breeze round his balls, whilst surrounded by bare-skinned beauties to lick upon them.
"I most certainly did, Sir Closeoff. Dare say I cared for them very much. The hair on her muff kept short, yet soft as silk, and just long enough to grab with mine teeth."
Masculus indulged Sir Closeoff, jutting his teeth out to show just how he'd done it.
"Her lady lips pink as a rose, neatly tucked yet supple to caress. Her bosom's well perked, near a full hand of firmness when grasped did I, and matching rosen teats to that of her rosen bits below." "Wonderful. Thank you, dear Masculus,"
Sir Closeoff replied, now lost in his mind's eye, staring upon his imaginings of the undressed damsel's lovely privates.
"Oh, it's all the same once you're inside 'em. Get to the real goods. What of her arse, her hips, the view from behind? I can't wait any longer,"
pleaded Sir Ben de Hover, or Benza, as most call him by. A simple man, Benza prefers taking his women from behind, holding hips and hair and tits as he happily thrusts away. He believes that whilst gazing upon a lady's backside, even the most homely of hoes can be made fair and beauteous.
"But of course, dear Benza. Why, from behind was a true delight. So fine it felt, pressing inside her, the fold of her waist further increasing the tightness of her already narrow halls. And what a sight to behold! Out on her reputable father's balcony, under the light of the moon, with her dimples of Venus dancing in the faint torchlight from behind, her firm cheeks giving way to jiggle each time our hips did meet, as my hands gripped hers on the railing. 'Twas then that I spilt my first seed of the night, a memory I shall surely call upon in dark times, if ever the need should arise." "Oh, what a dream!"
exclaimed Benza.
"Songs to be sung by the sound of it! Songs to be sung!"
He was beside himself with admiration for Masculus's retelling, as it nearly placed him behind the young damsel just by the hearing of it.
"Pray tell me, good Masculus, was she grateful?"
asked Sir Gregory Comes-a-Lot with pointed concern. His namesake bestowed upon his family generations ago through sheer merit, Sir Comes-a-Lot is known to reach fruition many times in a single encounter, surpassing even his family's ample reputation by literal heaps and mounds.
I'm glad you asked, Sir Gregory, for she was as grateful as they come.
Masculus replied in a solemn, reflective manner, and as he continued, a respectful hush swept over the hall.
She was but a caged bird set free to open skies. So sweet a song she sang, as those virgin wings spread wide and took flight for their first time.
Masculus stood tall and gestured towards the heavens above.
Oh, and to have been her guide, to feel those tense, timid nerves melt and give way to such eager, ecstatic delight. I wish each and every one of you could have been there beside me to bear witness.
His brothers all nodded their heads in unwavering solidarity, hanging upon Masculus's every word.
Upon first entrance of mine glory into her pristine chalice, deep to its end, then pressed firmly deeper still until full to its very brink, her entire body began to rise into the air, the two of us now moving together as one. It was then that I saw it in her eyes, as they began to tear with what could only have been pure gratitude and wonderment at the blessing bestowed within her. 'Twas truly a divine deed dutifully delivered to a deserving damsel in distress.
The 7 holy Ds, one of the Brotherhood's most sacred omens. They finished it together in contemplative unison. Masculus spoke from a place of such deep honesty and clear nobility of purpose, his revelations profound, and for those wise enough to listen, transformative to the very core. A moment of pause came after he finished speaking, as a sense of hope for what miraculous beauty life could offer filled the air.
I just don't get it. I mean, what good's a lass like her, eh?
Putting an abrupt end to the serene silence was Barbara Bigbush, a long-time regular at the Old Cock Inn and familiar with all in earshot, for most more times than they'd care to admit.
Ain't got no experience moving her hips like me. Why, I know better than any maiden how to please a grown man in the sheets.
Bigbush's best years were well behind her, and as any wench past her prime, she'd naturally grown quick to envy. She'd sat through more than she could stomach hearing about this former maiden's tight, young body.
Oh, Bob, don't you worry that big old hungry cunt of yours,
said Sir Buster Hyman, who to this point had remained silent. A true connoisseur at heart, Sir Hyman's tastes are particular exclusively to maidens, though often to his own detriment, as they are neither plentiful in numbers nor easily attainable.
You're not like to get passed by tonight, even if your twat's been run through by more lads than a target at the archery range.
He exclaimed with fervor as the entire hall erupted in laughter. Things devolved quickly from there, putting Masculus's grand tale of noble deeds to rest for the night. As the evening continued, the men began to roll dice for who would have first go with the present hoes, the winners cheering their good fortune and jesting at the losers, describing what state of mess they might leave the hoes in before passing them along. Tempers rose hot at times, with wenches stepping in to assure that the more detestable of suggestions would surely not come to pass. The merriment would continue for a time, though it wasn't long before Masculus chose to retire from the festivities, which soon after his departure turned over to the expected sexual misdeeds and debauchery for most, and finally to sleep for all. That's it for this installment of The Tales of Masculus. Tune in next time to discover what adventures lie ahead. Will Masculus blossom more maidens, or bed any wanton hoes? Will he yet receive the letter from the former maiden, Rayleigh Desprato? All that and more in the coming chapters. In the meanwhile, do wise and noble deeds, and spread word of the Masculus to friends and family alike. Just remember, these tales are not for children, and they are not for the faint of heart. Caution should be taken when sharing these tales with elders, for fear that their heads might surely explode. For these are tales for manly men, and women that wish for naught but to bathe in their presence. And of course, when the time comes, to make them sandwiches.